Our mission for iConnect training is to help support the HVAC and refrigeration instructors in the field with equipment and curriculum that's going to help them teach the future technicians of the industry.
What's really cool about our product line, the iConnect training line, is it blends technology with the old school basic science. And so our technology demonstrates it. We have sight glasses that show the phase change of the refrigerant. We have instrumentation that is attached to the trainers and displays in big screen or smart devices. And it does a lot of the calculations and demonstrates how the calculations actually mean something in the real world.
The students really love the visibility into the system, to be able to see the refrigerant actually going through here and observe the system as it's running.
For the future, our customers can look forward to new training units, and we also have new curriculum specifically for the HVAC and refrigeration industry, which we're very excited to add as e-learning for the vocational instructors.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you all for joining Did You Know, the ESCO HVAC Show. We're spending some time today with Lori Northrup. Lori, how are you today?
Very good. Thank you, Cliff.
And we're going to spend some time talking about access to Perkins funds and what Perkins funds even is. I didn't know myself. I had to learn about it once I got to the ESCO team. And it's a great opportunity for you to dive in and get a new perspective. One of the things that we've seen at our conference, at the National HVACR Education Conference, was a lot of new educators. And anyone that's joining us right now, if this is your first year in education, let us know. Mezianne, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you being here. So let us know if you're new to training, you're new to the educational program, and let us help you find the resources to connect to. Another thing that we recognized at the conference was during COVID, we had a lot of experienced educators retire early, which means we have a very significant new generation of educators coming into programs. Hopefully they have some directives and they have some incentives. It's probably not though. Most of us, when we walk into that program, we go, oh wow, where do I begin? And that's what the conference does. It brings us all together and we find all of these connections. And not just for the whole Perkins side. Little quick, before we get going, little quick reference for my own connection on what the conference has done for me. 2019 was my first year to go to the conference. I started teaching in 18, went to the conference in 2019. And Laura, you probably don't remember this, but we actually met in 2019 when I went to the conference.
Yeah,
right?
thank you.
So, my I-manifold was actually a prize that I won in the class there. So that was my first introduction into what this entire world of training resources is. It's about connecting with people and being successful. So thank you so much, Howard. We appreciate you hanging in because I know this is a very, very passionate topic for you as well. So let's learn a little bit about what Perkins even is and how it applies for our programs today.
Terrific. And thank you everyone for joining today, and thank you ESCO for coordinating all this. I'm going to talk about some keys for unlocking Perkins funding for your specific program. And this is really aimed at the instructor or the administrator. It's not aimed at someone who spends their whole day professionally working on fundraising for Perkins, because that is its own specialty.
I bet.
I'm going to give you some little tips of the trade. So what we're going to cover today is a little bit of history on the Perkins funding, what it is, how the billions of dollars are allocated, and how each state has specifics that do vary.
Okay.
And I'm going to give you 7 tips to maximize your individual program's success for Perkin dollars, regardless of where you stand. I think all these tips are applicable. And then if we have time, Cliff, you'll help us get some audience examples of different Perkins successes that people may have had.
Yeah, absolutely. For anyone joining us that has utilized Perkins for their programs, definitely let us know. Either you can chime in right now or we can save it to later. If you chime in right now, I'll just bring it back up later. But we are definitely curious of how it's worked for you if you've had the opportunity.
Yeah. So first, let's just step into a little bit of history. The Perkins, as we nickname it, is actually the Perkins Career and Technical Education Act of 2006 as amended. We're now on Perkins 5.
Oh, wow.
And the principal source of all this Perkins funding is federal funding to the state level. And it's all for the improvement of secondary and post-secondary career and technical education programs. So that in one sentence is what Perkins is.
Okay.
It's your tax dollars at work in technical education programs.
Yeah, and what I seen, it was like 1.3 billion annually that's awarded for these programs.
Yep, it's quite a bit of money there.
Okay.
So what is the purpose of Perkins? It's really to develop academic, career, and technical skills at the secondary and post-secondary student level, and it's for students who elect to enroll in career and technical education programs.
That CTE's me.
Yep. So they define secondary as high school and middle school.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they define post-secondary as 2-year colleges, 4-year colleges, universities, private career centers, on-the-job training, etc.
I hadn't even really thought about it for secondary. I mean, I had recognized it for post-secondary, but we see a lot of programs that are evolving at the high school level, and so this absolutely can apply in that perspective as well.
Yeah, and we see a tremendous number developing at high school, and when you see some of these statistics, you're going to see that that's where a lot of the funds are headed.
Okay.
So in one little graphic, the purpose of Perkins is to flow money to today's skills for tomorrow's careers. Perkins has some history. You know that the first federal funding of vocational education was back in 1917. And at that time, $7 million was allocated to agricultural, industrial, and home economics.
I remember hearing about this and reading about that in history classes. Yeah.
In order for a state to participate, they gave them a little carrot and a stick. So the stick was they had to create a board of vocational education. So that was the founding back in 1917, which amazed me.
Over 100 years
ago that was.
Yeah. So they already were looking at, what is an advisory board? If you're going to have a program, who's going to help coordinate it?
You gotta coordinate it. And here's a quote that I found from the history. Think about what year you think this quote was generated. Many philanthropists and moral reformers regarded vocational training as an opportunity to instill the moral value of work, which they fear was being eroded by modern society.
That feels like modern industrial revolution to me.
Okay, so what year would you peg that?
I would put that into the 1920s.
Oh, very good, very good. Howard, you want to take at it?
You could put that in any decade. And
I bet you could.
I know. Are we worried today about the value of work being eroded?
Man, absolutely. I mean, we hear it all the time.
So you were really close. That was actually back in 1917.
That was part of that.
So a lot of things have not changed since then.
Well, and I love my history, so that's not too far of a shot. I probably heard it somewhere along the way.
So the Perkins Act, under that name, was first established in 1984. And then it was reauthorized in 1990 with a new name. And who was the namesake? And what state was he from?
Oh, there's a question. All right, people in the chat.
Minnesota or Michigan?
Minnesota or Michigan, I'm hearing.
Okay, well, I've seen Carl D. Perkins. I've actually spent enough time with Howard. I've heard that a little bit, but the year, anybody out there?
You've been studying.
There we go.
Kentucky.
He was from Kentucky, believe it or not.
Yeah, just south of me. How about that? I did not know that one.
He was an attorney. He served in the U.S. House of Representatives for 35 years, and he was chairman of the Committee on Education and Labor. And one of his other interesting accomplishments is he's responsible for the Head Start program.
Oh, really?
So since then, it's served 37 million children, which is pretty impressive. So
yeah, that is.
Carl was a very active guy, and interestingly, his son ran and took over for his office in the House of Representatives when he retired. So back at that level, that $7 million, if that had been brought forward today into just today's dollars, that would mean federal funding of $161 million into Perkins grants.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But the truth is that federal funding is now at the $1.4 billion level.
Wow.
School year. And it's been increasing pretty modestly, about 3% a year. This year we got a 3.6% increase for 2023.
Okay. So
So-
really continuing to invest in this incentive.
Yep. And again, the purpose of the Perkins Act, I think the important thing here that I'd like to underline, and you're going to hear about it in the rest of the presentation, is that very last phrase. It's for aligning learning programs to best serve the needs of the local economy.
There you go.
So it can be very different from state to state.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Really, who is in your local economy? Where are your students going to get a chance to go to work in the technical world? And that's what Perkins is trying to fund.
Howard brings this up all the time when we're talking about our advisory board. Do we have the same group of, service companies from one school to the next, the same type of organizations, or do we really focus on what is available in our community? And it really gives us the opportunity to look at, each community is very different. Just look at the training programs alone. If we speak HVAC, what does that mean? Well, it really means what does it look like in your own market, because those markets can be all over the place for equipment and the training needed for that.
Yeah.
What does local mean? You could be in a big city like Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Three schools could be within 5 miles of each other and have different program advisory partners.
Sure.
Different companies, different needs.
Yeah. Or out here where I live, you better be willing to drive 50 or 70 miles to get to a job, because there's not going to be anything much closer. It's pretty rural. So let's take a look at how the Perkins funds are then distributed from that federal level down to the states. This distribution usually happens in April. This year it happened a little bit early in March. It actually happened a day before my presentation in Vegas, you guys.
Oh, really? How about that? Timely.
And the U.S. Department of Education announces it to the state directors. And then of that announcement, 40% is available for obligation by July 1st. And the final 60% is available for obligation by October 1st. So that leads to the 2 waves of, quote, Perkins funding that you've probably heard about in your schools or your organizations.
Which really shows us the importance of being ahead of it and being educated, hanging out with us, learning what it is, how to actually apply. Because we're not talking about something that you can put in the request and 30 days later you may get an approval for it. We're talking about something to plan ahead and budget for your fiscal program for the following season.
Exactly, or seasons, because you may not get it this year. So
True.
Don't
Absolutely.
So of the Perkins pie, administration, believe it or not, takes 15% right off the top.
Wow.
And the rest goes then to the states for their programs. And I don't know if the numbers are big enough here for you guys to see. This is right off a government graph. So you have 86% left for the programs and 10% and 5%. So that does seem to me like a little rounding typo, but it is the government. So on we go. So of that remaining money, then a school must submit a 5-year plan every 5th year. So they want your school to be looking long-term.
Long-term. What's this investment going to be worth?
And then the allocations that go to each state are a very complicated formula. And rather than getting into the weeds on this, I want to let you know that it's involved heavily weighed with 2 things: the proportion of your 15 to 24-year-old population in that entire state, and your per capita income in that entire state.
Okay.
So in the red
sense.
box is my summary of how you figure out the Perkins money by state. The more youth you have and the less income you have, the more Perkins dollars you should get.
I mean, if we think about it, it's a program that is incentivizing our youth to go into the trade. So, when you look at the region now, I mean, it makes sense that that's who we're marketing the most money for, to increase those programs' capabilities.
Exactly. So I wanted to show you, this is a small eye chart, but this is the this year's allocation. And I highlighted there's 2 pages here that we'll go over, and you can look for your own state. But I wanted to show you the highest state on this page is California at 141 million allocation. And the lowest state is Alaska at 5 million allocation. So think about number of youth, that's actual head count.
Sure.
Think about dollars per state per capita. It makes sense that one of the largest per capita states is getting the largest amount. And then that Alaska, we all know, has a pretty small population.
Yeah.
And so that's not going to earn as much in the distribution. And then you can see the proportions here. So if your state was California, you can see that 64 million is going to be for that July 1st deadline, and 77 million is available for the October deadline. And here are the rest of the states. Hopefully you can see that. And again, the largest state on this page is Texas.
The big state, isn't it?
7 million. But Texas does come in smaller than California. So California is leading the pack. And then Virgin Islands is the smallest at 1.7 million. But Puerto Rico gets 20 million. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that is an interesting one.
I know I met some Puerto Rican instructors at your event, so hopefully they're paying attention to that.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys are out there, this is what we're here for. This is to help lead you along the way.
And at the end of the presentation and in the materials that Cliff will make available to you, I have a lot of the websites for your own data so that you can get your own individual state data and resources. So that'll be coming up at the end. So now you've gotten your state's amount of money. Now, how much of it goes where?
How do we divide it down?
Yep, each state has a different allocation of how much is going to go into secondary. Remember, this is high school and middle school.
Wow.
And how much is going to go into post-secondary. This is your community colleges, etc.
Yeah.
So the average is 62% is going to high schools and middle schools. I was amazed by that.
Yeah, any high school educators out there with us today, if you are, please let us know that you're here and if you're utilizing these funds right now. That's an interesting perspective.
I think that's an unknown piece of it.
Yeah.
And then post-secondary gets much less than 50%. However, again, back to each state has their own allocation. That was an average.
Right.
So I picked out the state that puts the most money at the high school level and the state that puts the most money at the post-secondary level. That was surprising to me.
Boy, so there's a good trivia question.
Rhode Island is funding their high school and middle schools at an amazing rate.
So they must be promoting high school CTE heavy.
Yep, and that interesting.
The second one's Georgia.
Georgia, you're taking a guess, is promoting their post-secondary. What do you think, Cliff? Come on, take a guess. It can't be Rhode Island. You can't pick Georgia.
I would say maybe Wisconsin. I see a lot of advertisements from Wisconsin.
Okay, and it's actually Colorado.
Huh, okay.
So that shows you the range of distribution between the 2 different categories of schools. I thought that was interesting.
That is. I mean, because you would expect it to be relatively consistent across the country, but it's just going to show that it is very much varied by the state.
So everything that I've shown you so far is all background. It's history, it's legal, it's what goes on at the state level. And I doubt that any of you can affect that. If you can, please let us know, because you know more about this than I do. But as an individual instructor, what can you affect? What can you do? And I want to show you what I think are 7 very doable points. Anyone could do all 7 of these, and I think you should be if you want to encourage the Perkins dollars to flow your direction towards your program. So let's go through these key ideas that would actually help you bring success to your program, not just to your state or your type of school, but to your community school and to your specific program. So the first point is to realize that winning Perkins grants is a team sport. It's going to take a whole bunch of people. It's going to take local employers of the HVAC students. It's going to take your superintendent or president, depending on whether you're in high school or college. It's going to take your principal or your dean of your program area. It's going to take the board members of your school, because they are often the final decision makers of where those what recommendations are going to be followed. Your school probably has somebody, either full-time or part-time, assigned as your Perkins administrator. You need to know who that is, and you need to be in communication with them. You may have a program manager, or perhaps you are the program manager for your HVAC program. If you're the only instructor, you're probably also the manager. If it's a larger program, the manager might be you, or it might be one of your associates.
Sure.
Then you're also going to have fellow teachers and instructors in your program. And so they should be working with you as a team, because you're all trying to bring funds to your program. And then there's you, hopefully, the very motivated HVAC instructor who's ready to make a difference.
So Lori, let me just say something. The reason I was smiling at that picture.
Yes, sir.
This is all about a program advisory meeting.
I was going to say it. I'm glad you pulled that out.
You know, a lot of people go, hey, I'm required to do this. Let me just check off that box.
Right.
Do your job.
Yep.
And you let everyone in the look. If I go to a PAC meeting and I don't see administrators there, I don't see the people over the program, I don't see a lot of industry support, that's on you.
Yeah.
So the more people, if you're, whether it be the principal of your school or your campus president, the dean over your program,
yep,
your job is to paint a picture of how this industry is changing and why they need to help you get the funding into that program.
And bring everyone together. I mean, here's your checkoff list right here. Do I have all of these people at my PAC meeting?
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you, Howard. That's a really good observation, and it's very true.
We're going to have to build a card like that, Howard. You know that, right?
So first person that you should get in touch with is your state's CTE director. And again, the list of all these by state is at the end of the resources at the end of this.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Their full-time job in your state is to help any school who wants to get Perkins funds.
Oh.
They are a neutral resource. They're supposed to help everybody in the state, but they only help if you ask.
Right.
So they're not coming around knocking on your door to see if you need help.
Sounds like most federal incentives.
Yep. So probably the first step, so that you don't step on any toes in your own team, is talk with your school's individual Perkins administrator and offer to contact the state CTE director and discuss ideas for your program's funds. This will both help out your Perkins administrator, because you're doing the legwork, and it's going to help educate you and open up your eyes to the specific things that are available at a state level. So I would suggest that you strike up a conversation. You're going to have to start by email, because they don't give you their phone numbers right away.
How would I begin that process if I didn't know who to even ask?
Yep. At the end of this presentation, you're going to see the link for all the resources. You're going to go there on our website, and it's going to show you the state link, and it's in a list by state. And just look up your state, and there's your director's email. So that's probably a good person to get on your side and start communicating with. Remember, their entire job is to help the state, but how many enthusiastic HVAC instructors do you think reach out to them in your state? You know, you can be one of the top ones, and you
I
can
bet it's
get
minimal.
Private advice, free and directed. The second important key is to inform yourself about your own school's deadlines. Okay, so we have federal deadlines, we have state deadlines, but you work for a school and they have their own deadlines. And if you don't know what those are, you cannot be in advance. So talk with your school's Perkins administrator, talk with your principal, find out what your school's deadlines are. There's probably 2 every year, and find out what they are, because they have to be in time for everybody to roll everything up to the state deadlines.
So these are submittal deadlines.
Yep. So you need to find out how it works in your own school, and then be your first program in your school to submit your materials, not the last.
Yeah.
Think about this Perkins administrator's job. It's probably a part-time person. She's probably also a guidance counselor or instructor on finance or who knows what. And so she's supposed to bring all these requests, put them all together, present them to the board in time on a deadline. You know, it's a huge project, so make it easy. Submit all your stuff early and know those deadlines, and submit every single deadline, and just keep asking or add new requests or change the request, but make sure you never miss a deadline. So
Well, Lori, I think that whether it be Perkins or other grants, if you don't care who gets the credit, you'd be really surprised at what you could get done. So I'm a big advocate of teachers getting to know, hey, I found there's this local, whether it be Perkins, this other grant. I filled out all the paperwork. You could take credit for it. Just make certain I dotted all the I's, crossed the T's. They're happy. They look good. Now you just got what you wanted for your program.
Yep. And the other thing to remember here, and that's a good point, I didn't really mention this anywhere in here, is you have to have perseverance and stick-to-itiveness. I have, when I went to raise the money to start my business, I got denied 39 times.
Wow.
Okay, in the last few years when there was some funding available for those of us that were, our businesses were hit by COVID implications, pandemic problems, I got turned down 25 times, and I just kept reapplying. It's a huge government. I got a different person looking at it every single time, and at the end, somebody said yes. Don't give up here. You know, if you get denied one time, that's just your starting point.
Exactly. That's a good lesson right there.
Yeah. So the third point to realize is that what's allowed by Perkins funding, what you can spend it on, again, varies state by state. There is not an overall rule. So point number 3 would be learn what your state and your school allows, and then get creative within those restrictions. So,
Lori, doesn't it also change from secondary to post-secondary?
Oh, it changes completely, and your school can put its own tougher guidelines in place. So you don't know until you ask what's allowed in your school. So here's some examples that apply to the whole state of South Carolina. You can buy your classroom a set of books. You can have staff being paid to support the CTE of students. So you could have tutors, coaches, apprenticeships, all being paid for.
Nice.
You could buy instructional supplies. So in our world, that might be refrigerant, might be tubing, it might be whatever you need.
Tools, meters,
You can buy equipment, of course. That's obviously
it's a big
one because you can see it. You can buy software, curriculum, programs related to the industry. So if you want to train your HVAC students how a typical business dispatching program would work, that might be what you decide to buy for a year, as a seat into a dispatching program and teach your students about it.
So would this also apply to e-learning modules as well?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yep. It applies strongly for financial assistance for CTE to special populations of students.
Sure.
And we probably all know who they are, but that means anyone who is not white, anyone who is female, anyone who has learning disabilities and has special situations. So that is very highly supported as a good cause if you're involving them in your CTE program.
Absolutely.
You can cover a tour at an employer, so you can pay for going to do that. That's pretty cool.
So in many cases, I can help start a new program, get equipment, get trainers, get software, get professional development.
Yep.
And I just heard paid road trip, field trip, didn't I?
Yep.
Yep. I like that idea.
So it just shows you how wide the spending permitted might be in one state. And then when you work with your school and see what's actually allowed, then you can really get creative within all these buckets.
Okay, very cool. Lots of opportunities, but we have to know exactly what applies to us.
Yep. So again, in summary, Perkins funds can typically be used for improving equipment, software programs, CTE for instructors. So make sure you get to that ESCO.
Get to the conference. Right there's the payway.
Developing curriculum and assessing technical skills. So maybe your program, you're going to start leading your technician students to get through their EPA 608 exam.
Right.
That could be included.
Nice.
Okay, point number 4.
Paperwork.
Aggressively fill out every single request paperwork as fast as you can. Do not let this pile accumulate on your desk, because this will not help you getting grant.
Absolutely. Be
So
steadfast.
no matter whatever comes across your desk, no matter how little the grant opportunity is, how short the deadline, how busy you are. If you're not even sure if it applies, fill it out. I would suggest you have yourself a short outline of things you're going to ask for and just keep it current on your desk. And next time you get any grant paperwork, maybe it's only for $500 from a community organization. But believe me, if you win that and show them what a good job you've done, the next one might be $5,000.
That's exactly. Show that you're a good steward of the opportunity.
Yep, apply for everything and have your plan pre-made out in your brain so that you're not having to work out for each grant. You already have a sketch of what you're going to try to apply for. Number 5, we've talked about this a little bit, but your school may or may not be required to already have a Perkins Advisory Committee.
Okay.
Find out and then help your Perkins person. Thank you, Cindy. Very
Yes.
nice. Help whoever is in charge of that Perkins Advisory Committee to fill those seats on the committee. I mean, somebody's got to do it.
Yep.
And just think, if you went out to your community's employer base and happened to get someone who runs a really good HVAC contracting company, then think about what's going to happen. It helps you twofold. First of all, you've helped your school, and they're like, man, Instructor Joe really helped me fill that committee.
Yeah,
He did a
absolutely.
good job. He invited in a couple people that we could choose from. That was great. But it's also going to develop relationships for you with industry employers who are going to appreciate your program. And when you're applying for a grant, you might add a testimonial. You might add a photo of what they're doing with some of your students, an internship. This is going to help you in the community.
Well,
So I think this is a really strong recommendation.
So Laura, you're really saying we should have that 20,000 foot perspective of an administrator of where the funding for the school comes from,
Right.
as well as our program. The more we know, the more we can help impact that to get more money for the school and our program.
Right. And just think about it. The advisory committee probably only has 5 or 6 or 7 seats on it.
yeah, exactly.
So every program is not going to be represented. So make sure
No.
that your program is one of the ones that's well represented.
Yeah, if I've got 10 different CTE, qualifying programs and I have 5 people sitting in, well,
Right.
if the funds come through, guess what CTE programs are getting funding?
You bet. That's
That's a no-brainer.
That's what they're familiar with.
Yeah, exactly.
So this
Okay.
is at the school level. All right.
Yeah.
Support your school's advisory committee. And number 6, and become your program's CMO. Now, you corporate guys probably know what CMO. Does anyone want to take a guess at what that represents?
Anyone out in the audience?
You always hear about the C-suite in a big company. You've
Yeah.
got the CEO and you've got the COO. And what is a CMO
It's a chief officer now.
of what?
Yeah, management?
This is your marketing.
Marketing. Oh, absolutely.
Right. So you, as an instructor at a school, you need to become your program's chief marketing officer. You have to market your program. So you can't just come to work and collect a salary and hope that it all goes well. I mean, I guess you could do that, but you're not going to
Not
maximize
gonna succeed.
your success with
Right.
Perkins funding. So first of all, take the initiative, meet with your supervisor, your principal, your dean. I want you to stay within your chain of command so you don't get your hand slapped. And suggest that your department is going to bring a presentation and a student demo to one of their future board meetings.
Very
They
good.
will love this. This costs
Yeah.
nothing. It's huge eye candy for your program. You're going to pick somebody, a team of 2 or 3 students who are going to present well. Maybe one of them is in the categories that we talked about earlier
Mhm.
of, maybe you've got a Hispanic gal or a African-American gal or something. Find somebody who's well-spoken and would do a good demo. They'll be honored to be asked because that builds their resume. And come to a future board meeting. Maybe you can roll in the demonstrator. You can just do a quick little 5-minute demonstration that shows something about HVAC. The board could ask the students 2 or 3 questions, and you guys have, served a nice little snack, some snack crackers or something you pass around, and you walk out, and they're left with quite a good impression. Like, oh my gosh, That
Absolutely.
HVAC program really has it together.
Not exactly what they were anticipating on seeing. And that's the goal. The
Exactly.
goal is to paint a better picture of our industry. Our industry is evolving and changing, and we have a
Yep.
lot of new technologies. We have a lot of things that we need for our department that really may not have been required 5 or 10 years ago.
Exactly.
Now we really
Exactly.
have to paint this picture bigger to the people who have seen a department that's not changed. There's a really good possibility they've not
Yep.
seen a different perspective of this department. Now we have the opportunity to do that, to bring a better light to what's happening in the HVAC industry.
Right. In terms of marketing, think about how you could advocate or support your own program. The best way is to communicate. Interview employers for a testimonial. It might be a testimonial of a student of yours they've hired, or a student they wish they could hire, or a job they're trying to fill. Describe internships where you've helped a student maybe get a successful internship. Highlight recent graduates who are now working. I've talked to schools where by the time their students are through their first year program, they're all working and they're coming
Yep.
to school driving their company's vans
Right.
and headed off to work after class. Publish in the community paper students who pass that EPA 608 or whatever certification you're working toward. Show that competency among your students, but you've got to communicate it. So get it out in your local areas and
I
in
ju-
your state areas.
I just recently seen a Facebook page that was part of a school, and that Facebook page for the HVAC department, all of the videos were done internally by students, and it
There
really
you go.
painted an interesting perspective of the department, not from the educator side, but from the students, and it
Yeah.
really showed a different light on the entire program.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
And then make sure that you brag when your program helps a traditionally unrepresented population.
Yep.
And that's defined in the world of the Perkins eyes as minorities and women. Now, I don't think we should be considered a underrepresented population, but certainly in HVAC we are. So
Yes, absolutely.
pull out those examples and brag about everybody, but make sure that you keep an eye on that.
Yep.
So that's the section on market your own program. You have to do that marketing work, and there's lots of ideas. And Cliff or I or Howard, any of us would probably love to help you brainstorm ideas. I mean, I'd love to do that. So let me
That's
know.
what we're all here for, is to help make
Well,
the
my
connections.
idea is you make certain the AC's not working during the meeting. They'll appreciate it.
Another really good idea here. Now we're bringing the advisory committee concept down to you personally. I think every instructor should have their personal advisory committee. Get 1 or 2 or 3 local employers. Ask them if they would just help you. Maybe twice a year, you might have a pizza dinner at your facility or at your training lab, or have the home, what do they call it? Industrial arts now. If they're cooking in your school,
Right.
have them
Culinary arts.
prepare a dinner for you, and bring that advisory group in a couple times a year and talk to them. Talk to them about what you're doing, what you hope to do, what your wishes are. That's going to help develop your image for any kind of a grant.
Absolutely.
And
I was
make
just-
that bridge. I'm sorry, Cliff. Let me just
No.
explain. If you've got that advisory group, then you
Mhm.
can match make on internships, summer work experiences, future jobs. I mean, that's just perfect because they understand what you're doing. They feel like they're part of it, and they're happy to support it.
Yeah, it opens up the opportunity for, guest speakers as well, talking a little bit
Yep.
more about what the industry actually looks like once you get out of the program.
Exactly.
Programs live and die on their program advisory meetings.
Yeah.
Anyone who listens, I'll just say this. Clifton has a podcast that we recently did on this. There's a video on our channel. We put out a lot of information. If I go to a place that has a big program advisory meeting, they usually have a waiting list to get in that program.
That's exactly
If
right.
I go to a place that has a small program advisory committee, they typically are struggling to get students.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
It's
A
an
direct-
amazing connection.
Direct
Yes.
All
result.
about the industry support and
That's
perception of your program.
Yeah.
Very good. And Howard, I know a few years ago you did a presentation on how to get the best usage of an advisory committee. Maybe you could make that link available to the people who are on this and refresh
Sure.
that. I didn't know where to find it, but that was a great one I've heard recommended.
Absolutely. We can tag that in the description on this YouTube video when we get done. So if you want to come back and join us later and review this, just go to our ESCO Institute HVAC Excellence YouTube channel, and I'll have that cleaned up and should be back up tomorrow, Sunday at the latest.
Super. Super. So remember, this team was a team sport.
Yeah.
Well, recommendation number 7 is to thank the whole team all the way back up the chain anytime you get any funding. And think about how you could do it. Email or text is quick. A handwritten thank you note is free. An article in the local papers calling out all the people that helped get you to that point. A quick meeting for coffee or a bite for lunch. Show them photos, send them photos of what you used the money for and how it worked. Or meet with them in person. Get creative. Believe me, if you do something beyond an email, you will just blow their socks off, because that doesn't happen anymore nowadays. So
and even a social media post where you go ahead and show what you just did with the money, and thank the people and tag them so they see it.
That's a great idea. Yep.
Absolutely.
Make it public. Thank them very much. So let's just go through this very quickly in summary of what are the key ideas we came up with.
Okay.
One would be to contact your state CTE director and get some advice. Work ahead of your school's Perkins deadlines. So first you have to find out what they are, and then you have to be in advance. Number 3, learn what your state and your school considers an allowed expense, and then get creative. Keep that list going. Fill out every grant request instantly when it hits your desk.
Yeah, don't let it sit around.
Support your school's advisory board. Become your CMO, your own program's chief marketing officer.
I'll remember that from now on.
Thank everyone who helped you win funds each time that you win anything. Oh, and number 8. Did we cover this one, Cliff?
Oh, no, but we need to talk about this a lot, because we're talking about emerging technologies and how do we prepare our classrooms for new technologies.
So remember, this is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I'm just going to show you a little bit about what our business offers and how you might be able to spend some of those funds when they start
hard-earned funds.
So come see our equipment at next year's shows.
Oh, yeah.
This is a lab that was funded in Minnesota. This is a brand new training unit we came up with that's got the R290 refrigerant. So come and see all the stuff we make from large to small. We just bought a new product line about 6 months ago called Marcraft.
I seen that.
And so we cover training units and curriculum for cybersecurity, IT, green technology, renewable energy sources. So you could pass that on to whoever your associate is in your school that might be teaching cybersecurity or green technology. And if you already have one of our training units, thank you so much. If you'd like to do a short video testimonial at your school or at our show or somewhere, let us know and we'll give you a little credit towards your next purchase.
Hey, there you go.
And do we have any success examples, Cliff? And I don't want to take too much time because I know we've been running on.
I haven't seen, no, we got plenty of time. I haven't seen anybody, and we really would like to hear some testimonials on how you have utilized Perkins funds in your program. And maybe everyone that's on right now has not utilized Perkins. Maybe this is new to everyone, which is a great thing. It's the reason we do these type of topics. But if you have a success story, tell us a little bit about it. How about you, Howard? I'm sure as you're venturing out hitting many program advisory committees, what do you hear about Perkins scenarios along the way?
I mostly hear people who've never heard of Perkins.
I know. Yeah.
And I said this before the show. I'll just share this. The Carl D. Perkins Career and Technical Education Improvement Act of 2006 was 128,000 words in a 6-point font. It's like reading a simplified version of the IRS tax code.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You do not need to be an expert. You need to understand the fundings available and become friends with the people at your school or your school district or school system that can help you. Because when we talk to people, some of them will say, I didn't know. Wait, all this technology is changing, this wave of change hitting us. Wait, I could get new equipment, new trainers, revised curriculum. Wait, I could go get professional development, go to a conference. So all these things, and it's not about what we all do selling, but let's be honest, at the end of the day, all of you want to go get professional development, this might be your key. You're looking to outfit your equipment with the latest equipment and trainers, this might be the key. It might be the difference in the funding that you need.
Well, we've been preaching for months, the new equipment coming out, new technology. So you have CR2 that's changing a lot of our residential and light commercial systems. We have A2L refrigerants and A3 refrigerants that are heavy in the market. A lot of people don't even realize how heavy and significant that is. I was just sharing before we came on the program, I went to Costco last night, and as I was walking through, I seen an aisle full of air conditioners, window air conditioners, portable air conditioning units. And I thought, man, that's my kind of thing. I want to go over here and take a look at them. Every single one of them had R32 A2L refrigerants in them. Every single one of them. The only thing that had R410A was a little bitty dehumidifier, small room dehumidifier. Everything else was an A2L refrigerant. And a lot of people are going, wow, I need to learn about A2Ls because I have to send technicians out of here that know what an A2L is and how to handle it and make sure that they're using equipment. Is my equipment even A2L compliant?
So let me share something. We just published, the EPA just published the proposed ruling SNAP 26, and we published and put that out. Happen. We're sending out emails.
Yeah.
You're reading about A2L, SEER 2, decarbonization, electrification. What does all this mean? You're going to be walking into a program where you have electric heat pumps. We're talking about inverter-driven systems. We're talking about technology you have never worked on. Now you need to teach it. So number one, we want to help you get trained on it. You're going to need equipment. You're going to need trainers. Perkins may be the key to helping you achieving some of this. But Clifton, you and I talked privately about this. Many people watching remember in the late 1970s, when all of a sudden we couldn't buy gasoline, there was a sign, 8 gallons per car limit. Now, did we get rid of the internal combustion engine?
Nope.
No.
Just made it more efficient.
Right. We went to fuel injection. We went to electronic ignition. It's more environmentally friendly, more energy efficient. What happened in the automotive industry 40 years ago is about to happen.
It's getting ready to hit it.
So either you're going to have the right training to grow your business and grow your programs, or you're going to find you're not going to be able to survive in this industry.
Comment. Oh, sorry.
Hey, Cliff, may I just show the last 2 slides?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Give people the resource.
Yes, definitely. One of the comments that came in from Robert was that they can't find.
This was the $100 bills that we gave away if you were at the presentation in Vegas. I guess I can't do that today virtually.
No, can't do that one today.
And then these are the resources that are available for everyone. My name and email, feel free to reach out to me at our website /Perkins. I've got all the presentation and the reference links that we talked about, and look forward to hearing from any of you, or you can reach out to Howard or Cliff.
Absolutely. And if you want to just scan and get there quickly, you can also grab this QR code, which will take you into the iConnect training website. I said, love my iConnect stuff. I've got mine right here behind me.
Thank you.
Absolutely. One of the questions that came through there towards the end from Robert was that they can't find A2L equipment in supply houses in southern Louisiana. Well, it really it's that whole supply chain issue. Right? We've seen certain products that changed very quickly. I was able to find A2L mini splits on Amazon 9 months ago. So we're starting to see those trickle into the warehouses. What's going to happen is as those R410A, pieces of equipment go away, we're going to have an entire generation of A2L refrigerant equipment being installed. And if we think about a lot of these technicians coming out of the programs, where are they going to start? They're going to start as helpers on installations. That's typically where we go to. So they're going to be at that front line of seeing these new A2L and A3 refrigerants in the industry. It's like that A3 A3 trainer for refrigeration. I had A3 pieces of equipment in my stores, in the commercial grocery stores, started in 2016. So we've seen A3s for a while. They are now becoming the dominant drawer and door refrigerant going forward. So our programs have to be retrofitted with new technologies. And what if it's a year away? we need to be getting our applications in now for the next round of Perkins funding that's going to be coming that way.
Well, in Clifton, Robert's question, I'll just say this, that state by state, they have to revise their codes to allow for A2L.
Not all have yet.
You'll have to take a look at Louisiana where they're at on that. But the longer they take, the bigger the problem. There was a 10% reduction in HFCs as far as the allocation last year, 30% next year.
Yeah, January 24 is the biggie.
If people don't start updating their codes in certain states, you're going to have to move to new equipment.
Yeah, I would say as an instructor, as an educator, if your program currently does not have A2L and A3 equipment and training materials related to those two, you're probably going to be on the back burner of education because these new equipment are going to be here in the very, very near future. And just like this, if it takes a little while for our applications to be processed and for the funds to be released, remember, if we just start applying now, it's not going to be getting approved until 1st of next year, and the total allotment won't be until October of 24. And so by that time, we're really going to see a lot of equipment. I personally believe that 2024, we're going to see a ton of A2L in the residential sector getting installed. I seen it my first well over a year ago. I had a tech support call from an entire shipment of ductless mini splits that arrived. They were on back order for this contractor. Contractor called and said, hey, I have an entire shipment full of R32 mini splits. What do I do with them? I said, well, first you got to find out, like Howard said, are they available for installation in my area? Because we're still catching up with that as well. So there are a lot of changes happening in a very, very short window. And the more we can prepare you for that, the better off you are going to be, as well as your program.
Robert's got an interesting question up.
That is interesting.
Talk about that. Do you want to share the question?
Robert privately too, if you want.
Yeah, Robert, that's a good one. You're welcome to contact any of us. My email is cbeck@escogroup.org, and we can talk about different types of equipment that are available for training, because there are many trainers out there. We just seen the A3 portable desktop trainer manufactured by iConnect. Lori, do you have a A2L ductless system, an R32 ductless?
Not yet, nope.
Okay. Starting to see a request for them yet, though.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll put my 2 cents in. Technology moves quicker than education.
Oh, boy.
People in education need to be thinking where we're going to be in the future, because when you put in a requisition and it takes 2 years, here you go. Here's your new Windows 7 computer.
Right.
You need to be thinking ahead where the technology's going and start asking for it now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I would also think that in the HVAC training space, certainly you've got to be following the future, but you also have to realize the installed base, and your students have to know how to deal with that also. So.
Yep. Exactly.
Very
All
good.
Right. Yeah, this is fun stuff. Any last minute questions from the audience? We still have a little bit of time here. Robert,
welcome.
you're very welcome.
Very good.
That's really what we're all here for. This is part of our community, our village. You keep saying this is the village of HVAC. We all are here from different aspects of the industry for one reason: to succeed, to move forward, to progress, and to help educate all of ourselves together.
And know where your funding comes from, because if you understand that, you could get the resources you're looking for.
So true. Okay, well, I don't see any other ones. Lori, we thank you so much for your time. This was very, very informative.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. And look forward to seeing you down the HVAC road somewhere.
That's exactly right. Everyone have a great day, and we'll see you next week on Did You Know, the ESCO HVAC Show.